Welcome back to video 2, in which I am creating the Rolife Flowery Sweets and Teas miniature set. In today's video, I will be creating the deck, the shop sign, and the Arbor bench. I start out by finding the pieces for each item and cutting them out. I actually think locating the pieces on the wooden sheets is probably the most time-consuming, tricky part. They are not all on the same sheet oftentimes, and so it's a bit of a treasure hunt. After cutting out each piece, I sand down the edges to make them nice and smooth so they will fit perfectly together. These items are very small, and so really every millimeter makes a difference. You want to make sure you are gluing on the right side of that item and that they fit flushly together. When we get to cutting wire sizes, they actually have you cut the sizes by the millimeter, and so that's just how precise you really need to be. After all the wooden pieces are located, cut, and sanded, I start gluing them on. The glue that they have is a very secure glue, but you do have to hold it in place for a little bit for it to really stick, but once it does, it's very solid. And with that, the first item is just about complete. This is the shop sign. I lost the footage of me cutting out the paper part of the sign, but you just cut that piece out and glue it on top and it's complete. The next item is the deck. This is probably one of the most simple items that comes in the set. It's just a few pieces that you cut out, sand down, and glue together. The wooden legs of this deck are so tiny, just a couple millimeters thick, that I ended up using some tweezers to help hold the piece in place as I was letting the glue dry. This worked pretty well and was a lot more sturdy than my shaky hands can be. And with this final piece being glued on, the deck is complete. The final item that I'm assembling today is the Arbor and bench combination. It is such an incredibly adorable piece, really pretty colors, really amazing detail, but it takes the longest time. I think assembling this item took me about an hour and a half, which is quite a long time considering it was already cut and painted. I just had to glue it together, attach the vines and the flowers and the leaves. But in the end, it's still worth it because I think it's such a detailed, fun item. It's probably one of my favorite things in the whole set. So I'm just about finishing up the arbor, and once that is complete, I will move on to creating the flowers. So the first step is locating all the pieces, and these little wires with nubs at the end, they almost look like flexible Q-tips, are actually the center parts of the flowers. So I had to count each of those out, and then I take out each of the cut flowers and start assembling. This is really where I needed to experiment a little bit to see what methods would work for me. I didn't want the flowers to appear flat, even though they are paper, so I knew I wanted to bend them a little bit to give them some dimension. And then when I cut the wires to have the little nubs be the inside of the flowers, I didn't know if keeping them longer so I could poke them through the holes in the flowers would make more sense, or what would work best. So I kind of experimented around with a couple different strategies. In the end, I actually preferred cutting the nubs off as small as possible and then just gluing and attaching those to the center of the flowers. This is another area where I was able to use my tweezers to do a more precise job. The flowers are only a few millimeters across and they're made of paper, so they're really fragile, and being able to hold them with the tweezers gave me a better grip, so I was able to apply the glue and make sure that it was well adhered to the inside part of the flower. This is another process that takes a lot of time, but once I got into a rhythm here, it just kind of became relaxing, and I was just in this flow of making a million flowers. Just to put things into perspective, this video is actually going at 4 times the speed that I was actually creating these flowers at. So it is a lot of time creating the flowers, and I just did my best to sit back and enjoy it. This is where I tried a new strategy and started cutting off the tips and gluing them directly onto the center of the flowers. You'll see I kind of set everything out almost into an assembly line type structure, and I felt like that just went a bit faster and a bit smoother. I ended up using these metal tweezers constantly throughout the construction of this miniature set. and they did not come with the set. The set did come with a pair of black tweezers there. They are plastic. They're not the best quality, not the easiest to use, but these metal tweezers that I have are actually offset, so they bend at an angle, making it just a little bit easier to maneuver and use and be able to see what you're doing. So I'd highly recommend getting a pair of those tweezers. Now I'm moving on to making the vines that will weave in and out of the trellis. Like I've said many times, this is an incredibly detailed, precise set, so all of your measurements are in millimeters. So right now I'm cutting all of the wires that will be used for the vines down to the different sizes. Now that I have all of the wire cut to the correct sizes, I'm starting to twist and weave them into themselves to give it this very natural, organic, vine-like shape. Because wire is still metal, it's hard to twist exactly how I wanted it. I did break out the metal pliers to help manipulate the wire in certain areas, and it made it a lot easier. There's some areas at the very end of the vines that I wanted to twist in really small circles, kind of like natural vines do, and the wires were really helpful in achieving that look. Now I am taking the wire vines that I've twisted and I'm gluing it on the arbor, and then I'm taking the individual vine branches and I'm weaving that through different areas of the arbor, trying to achieve a very natural look that vines would have if they just naturally grew up and wove themselves through an arbor. I just took my time with it. I just kind of played around with what would look natural, what would look fun and interesting, and just had fun with it. Not only did I want the vines to go through the top of the arbor, but through the side of the arbor as well, like they was growing up from the ground all the way through the side and the top. So then I start twisting it through the different areas of the side of the arbor as well. Now that I have the vines woven through the arbor, I'm taking my metal pliers and just holding on to kind of the ends of the wire and twisting it to make this natural spiral pattern like real vines have. At the very ends, they kind of have this tight spiral look to them, and I wanted to make these vines look just like that, so I was able to achieve that look. I think it would be even better if I had had a pair of jewelry pliers because they don't have that sharp edge, and so it would just give it a more polished finish, but I was able to make do with what I had. Next up, I am taking out all of the different leaves that I will be using. This set uses both the light colored green leaves and the dark colored green leaves. Now on to the fun part. Since I have everything assembled and ready to go, I get to start attaching the flowers and leaves. One thing I wanted to be really mindful of when I was doing this was to make it an interesting piece to look at in a 360-degree angle. So I was kind of looking at the different sides of the arbor, making sure that flowers were facing different directions to give it some interest no matter what way you were able to look at it. At one point, it was helpful for me to lay the arbor at an angle, and that way I could apply some of the flowers on the inside and to the sides, and again, still see it from that 360-degree angle, making sure I was spacing out the flowers evenly and making it look interesting all the way around. And with that, I'm about to place the last flower. And with that, we have a final look at the 3 items I made today. First off, we've got the deck that will go outside the shop sign that goes on top of the shop, and the arbor bench. 3 very different items, ranging from very simple to very complex, very quick to assemble to very long time to assemble. But I am 3 items closer to completing this set. If you want to see more videos like this, please follow along, because I will have videos that go through every single item in this miniature set. So follow for the series.